Nobody is moving to Los Angeles anymore. And what is happening in the City of Angels right now is something even longtime residents never thought they would see in their lifetime. The dream that once pulled millions toward the Golden Coast has become something else entirely, something darker, something that is making families pack their lives into moving trucks and leave without looking back. Los Angeles County has lost nearly 500,000 people since 2015, and the bleeding has not stopped. The pandemic did not create this exodus, it accelerated something that was already underway, something that had been building quietly beneath the surface of palm trees and perfect sunsets. When you walk through neighborhoods that once felt safe, vibrant, and alive, you now see something completely different, something that makes you wonder if the Los Angeles you once knew is ever coming back. The cost of living in Los Angeles has crossed a threshold that even people with good jobs cannot justify anymore. Housing prices in areas like Santa Monica and Beverly Hills have always been steep, but now even modest neighborhoods demand incomes that feel almost fictional. A two-bedroom apartment in a decent part of the city can easily cost $3,000 a month, sometimes more. And that is before utilities, parking, groceries, and gas that ranks among the most expensive in the entire nation. People who grew up in Los Angeles, whose families have been there for generations, are being priced out of their own hometowns. They are watching their neighbors leave, watching as familiar faces disappear one by one, replaced by empty units or newcomers who can somehow afford what feels impossible. The financial strain is not just about rent or mortgage payments. It is about the realization that no matter how hard you work, you are always one emergency away from falling behind. Remote workers, young professionals, retirees, even small business owners are looking at their bank statements and realizing that staying in Los Angeles means sacrificing savings, stability, and any real hope of home ownership. So they leave, heading to states like Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and Tennessee, where their salaries stretch further and where they can afford to breathe again. But here is the part nobody talks about, the emotional toll of leaving a place you love because you simply cannot afford to stay anymore. Homelessness has exploded across Los Angeles in ways that have fundamentally changed the character of entire neighborhoods. In 2025, over 72,000 people experienced homelessness in Los Angeles County, and while the most recent count showed a 4% decline, the numbers remain staggering, historic, and deeply disturbing. Rows of tents now line sidewalks in Venice Beach, a neighborhood that was once synonymous with wealth, creativity, and coastal charm. Residents return home to find strangers camped on their doorsteps, in their yards, sometimes even inside their homes. One woman living alone in Venice Beach came back to find a homeless man in her kitchen, and that was the moment she decided she was done, putting her house on the market immediately because she no longer felt safe in her own home. Stories like this are not rare, they are everywhere, repeated in quiet conversations at coffee shops, in neighborhood apps, in panicked texts between friends. The city feels different now, more dangerous, more unpredictable, more like a place where anything can happen at any moment. The homeless crisis is not just a humanitarian tragedy, it is a psychological pressure that wears people down day after day until they finally break and leave. Parents do not want their children stepping over needles on the way to school. Business owners do not want to clean human waste off their storefronts every morning. And elderly residents do not want to feel afraid walking to the grocery store. The visible suffering is heartbreaking, but the sense of disorder, of a city losing control, is what ultimately drives people away. Crime rates in Los Angeles have become a polarizing topic because the statistics tell one story while lived experience tells another. Officially, homicides dropped 14% in 2024, with the city on track for its lowest homicide total in 6 decades, and property crimes also declined by nearly 7%. Those are real improvements, measurable progress that reflects genuine effort by law enforcement and community leaders. But perception lags reality, and for many residents, the fear remains intense and personal. People do not feel safer just because the numbers say they should. They feel what they see, what they hear, what happens to them and their neighbors. Car break-ins, package thefts, smash-and-grab robberies, catalytic converter thefts. These crimes may not always make the headlines, but they create a constant sense of vulnerability. Downtown Los Angeles and South Los Angeles continue to experience disproportionately high crime rates, and the geographic disparity means that some neighborhoods feel relatively safe, while others feel like war zones. The anxiety is not irrational. It is based on lived experience, on stories shared within communities, on viral videos showing brazen thefts in broad daylight. When people say the city has become unbearable, they are not exaggerating. They are describing what it feels like to live in a place where you are constantly on edge, constantly worried, constantly wondering if today is the day something bad happens to you or someone you love. California has some of the highest state taxes in the entire nation, and for many residents, especially high earners and small business owners, the tax burden has become unbearable. Income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes, they all add up. And when combined with the already crushing cost of living, people start asking themselves a very simple question. What exactly am I getting for all this money? The roads are congested and crumbling, public schools in many areas are struggling, homelessness is out of control, and basic city services often feel inadequate. People look at states like Texas, Florida, and Nevada, places with no state income tax, and they start doing the math. A high-earning professional in Los Angeles could save tens of thousands of dollars every year just by moving across state lines. And when you are already paying astronomical rent or mortgage, those savings start looking less like a luxury and more like a lifeline. Small business owners face a similar calculation, navigating complex regulations, rising minimum wage requirements, and tax structures that make profitability incredibly difficult. Many feel like they are working harder than ever just to stay in place, watching their margins shrink while their stress levels skyrocket. The tax issue is not just about money. It is about fairness, about feeling like you are being squeezed from every direction while the problems around you only seem to get worse. So people vote with their feet, taking their income, their businesses, and their tax dollars to places where they feel valued and where their money goes further. Traffic congestion in Los Angeles is legendary, mythical even, but what people outside the city do not always understand is just how much of your life it steals. Commutes of 2 hours each way are not uncommon, and spending 4 hours a day in your car fundamentally changes your quality of life. You miss dinners with your family, you miss your kids growing up, you miss sleep, exercise, hobbies, everything that makes life worth living. The freeways are parking lots during rush hour, surface streets are clogged, and public transportation, while improving, still does not serve most of the sprawling metro area effectively. People sit in traffic, breathing polluted air, watching their gas tanks empty, feeling their mental health erode mile by mile. The pandemic briefly offered a glimpse of what Los Angeles could be like without traffic, when the freeways were empty and you could cross the city in 20 minutes, but that dream evaporated as quickly as it appeared. Now the traffic is back, as bad as ever, maybe worse, and people are realizing that remote work has given them an escape route. If you can work from anywhere, why would you choose to spend 20 hours a week trapped in a car? The opportunity cost is staggering, the environmental cost is real, and the psychological cost is something you carry with you long after you finally pull into your driveway exhausted and defeated. The California public education system, once considered among the best in the nation, has declined significantly, and parents are noticing. Overcrowded classrooms, underfunded programs, aging facilities, teacher shortages, these problems affect schools across Los Angeles, and parents who want better for their children are making painful decisions. Some pay for private schools they can barely afford. Others move to specific neighborhoods with better public schools and even higher housing costs, and many simply leave the state entirely. The pandemic exposed deep flaws in the system, with remote learning revealing just how unequal educational resources really are across different communities. Parents watch their children struggle, watch teachers do their best with inadequate support, and realize that the education their kids were receiving was not preparing them for the future. Test scores in many districts are troubling. achievement gaps are widening, and the sense that the system is failing an entire generation is widespread. Education is one of those issues that transcends politics, income, and background, because every parent wants their child to have opportunities, to succeed, to thrive. When the schools cannot deliver that, parents look elsewhere, and Los Angeles loses not just individuals, but entire families, entire communities of people who would have stayed if they believed their children had a real future there. The California dream, the mythology of endless sunshine, opportunity, creativity, and reinvention. That dream has always been powerful, but myths can only sustain themselves for so long when reality pulls in the opposite direction. People move to Los Angeles believing that if they work hard enough, they can make it, that the city rewards ambition, talent, and determination. But more and more people are discovering that the math simply does not work anymore, that working 2 or 3 jobs still leaves you unable to afford a decent apartment, that success in your career does not translate into financial security, that the goalposts keep moving further away no matter how fast you run. The disillusionment is profound because it is not just about money. It is about identity, about believing in a place and then feeling betrayed by it. The city that promised everything is delivering less and less, and people are waking up to that reality. The entertainment industry, once a guaranteed draw, has changed dramatically, with production moving to other states that offer better tax incentives. The tech industry, which briefly seemed like it might revitalize the region, has seen companies leave for Austin, Miami, and other emerging hubs. The creative energy that once defined Los Angeles is diffusing, spreading out across the country as talented people realize they do not need to be in Los Angeles anymore to pursue their dreams. The city is losing its cultural gravity, and that loss is harder to measure than population numbers, but no less real. Air quality in Los Angeles has improved significantly over the past decades, but it still ranks among the worst in the nation. And for people with respiratory issues, allergies, or young children, it is a constant health concern. Wildfire season, which now seems to last most of the year, brings smoke that blankets the city for days or weeks at a time, forcing people indoors, closing schools, canceling events. The skies turn orange, the sun glows red, and you wear a mask not because of a virus, but because the air itself is toxic. Climate change has made this worse, extending fire season, intensifying droughts, and creating conditions where catastrophic fires are no longer rare events, but expected annual occurrences. People living in hillside communities or near wildland interfaces face the very real possibility of losing everything, and insurance companies are responding by raising rates dramatically or refusing to cover properties altogether. The anxiety of living in a tinderbox, of checking fire maps obsessively, of keeping go bags packed, it wears on you. Some people decide they cannot live that way anymore, that the beauty of the landscape is not worth the constant fear, and they move to places where natural disasters are less frequent and less devastating. The environmental challenges facing Los Angeles are immense, existential even. And while the city is working on solutions, the pace of change feels agonizingly slow compared to the speed at which problems are escalating. The social fabric of Los Angeles is fraying in ways that are hard to quantify but impossible to ignore. Communities that once felt cohesive now feel fragmented, transient, disconnected. People do not know their neighbors anymore, do not feel part of something larger than themselves, do not have the social networks that make a place feel like home. The high cost of living means people are constantly moving, constantly hustling, constantly stressed, and that leaves little time or energy for building relationships. The pandemic accelerated this isolation, breaking habits of gathering, of communal activity, of casual interaction, and many of those habits have not returned. The result is a city that feels lonelier despite being crowded, more anonymous despite being connected digitally. People crave belonging, they crave community, and when they cannot find it where they are, they start looking elsewhere. Small towns, mid-sized cities, places where people still talk to each other, where local institutions still matter, where you can walk down the street and see familiar faces. These places are attracting former Angelenos who are tired of feeling invisible. The irony is that Los Angeles was built by people seeking reinvention, seeking escape, seeking freedom from the past. But that constant churn of new arrivals and departures means nothing ever really takes root. The city is always becoming, never being. And for people who want stability, continuity, and connection, that is exhausting. Empty tables, empty streets, empty dreams. The billboards still glow, the palm trees still sway, the ocean still crashes against the shore. But something essential has changed. Los Angeles is still beautiful, still glamorous in places, still capable of taking your breath away on a clear day when you can see the mountains rising beyond the sprawl, but beauty alone cannot sustain a city. People need more than scenery. They need safety, affordability, opportunity, community, hope. They need to believe that tomorrow will be better than today, that their sacrifices mean something, that staying is worth the struggle. Right now, too many people have stopped believing that, and they are leaving not because they hate Los Angeles, but because they loved it and cannot bear to watch it decline. The exodus is not a sudden collapse. It is a slow bleed, a steady stream of U-Hauls heading east, of goodbyes that feel both painful and necessary, of doors closing on dreams that could not survive reality. Los Angeles will survive. Cities are resilient. But the question is what kind of city it will become. Who will stay, who will leave, and whether the magic that once made it special can ever be recovered. Maybe there is still hope. Maybe the tide will turn. Maybe new solutions will emerge that address the crises driving people away. But for now, the story is one of loss, of longing, of a city struggling to live up to its own mythology. We all remember what Los Angeles used to mean, what it used to promise, what it used to feel like to believe in its future. The question now is whether anyone will still believe that in 10 years, in 20, or whether the California dream will become just another ghost story, beautiful and haunting and forever out of reach. If you have felt this change too, if you have watched neighborhoods transform and friends move away and wondered whether you should be next, share your story, because these conversations matter. Because understanding why people leave is the first step toward figuring out how to make them want to stay. And if you found this eye-opening, subscribe, because the next story might reveal where everyone is going next, what cities are rising as Los Angeles struggles, and whether the great American migration reshaping our country is just beginning.